The champagne glass shattered against the marble floor, and for a split second, the entire ballroom fell silent. But that wasn't the sound that would destroy a $2.4 billion empire. No, that came exactly 7 seconds later, when Victoria Ashford did something so unconscionable, so breathtakingly arrogant, that it would trigger the fastest corporate collapse in Wall Street history. Before I tell you what happened, let me ask you something. Where are you watching this from? Drop your city and country in the comments right now, because what I'm about to reveal happened at the intersection of power, prejudice, and the most expensive handshake that never happened. And trust me, by the end of this story, you'll understand why one woman's refusal to extend her hand cost her everything. This is the true story of how racism destroyed a fortune overnight. The grand ballroom of the Metropolitan Hotel glittered with Manhattan's elite that October evening. Crystal chandeliers cast dancing shadows across faces worth billions, while waiters glided between clusters of power brokers who controlled the fate of industries. Victoria Ashford stood at the center of it all, resplendent in a crimson gown that cost more than most people's cars, her diamond necklace catching the light with every calculated laugh. She had earned her place here. As CEO of Ashford Capital Management, Victoria commanded respect, or so she thought. Her firm managed over $8 billion in assets, and tonight, she was celebrating her biggest coup yet, maintaining the exclusive investment contract with Teknova Industries, a tech giant whose annual business alone brought $2.4 billion to her firm's portfolio. Victoria, there's someone I'd like you to meet. James Hartford, the event organizer, approached with a tall, distinguished man in an impeccably tailored navy suit. The man had an air of quiet confidence, the kind that comes from achievement rather than arrogance. Victoria Ashford, please meet Marcus Thompson, the newly appointed CEO of Teknova Industries. The words hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. Victoria's practiced smile flickered. Her eyes traveled from Marcus's face down to his extended hand, and something dark crossed her features. The room seemed to hold its breath. Dozens of influential witnesses suddenly aware they were about to see something they couldn't unsee. Marcus Thompson stood there, hand extended, his expression patient and professional. He had that look, the one successful black executives develop after years of navigating rooms where their presence is questioned before their credentials are even considered. "It's a pleasure to finally meet you in person, Ms. Ashford," Marcus said, his voice warm and genuine. "I've heard exceptional things about your firm's management strategies." Victoria's hand remained by her side. Her lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile but definitely wasn't friendly. The seconds stretched into an eternity that everyone present would remember for the rest of their careers. "I don't shake hands," Victoria said coldly, loudly enough for the surrounding circle to hear, "especially not at events like these. You understand, hygiene concerns." But her eyes told a different story. Her dismissive tone told a different story. The way she slightly turned her body away, as if Marcus's presence contaminated her personal space, told the real story. Marcus's hand slowly lowered. His expression didn't change. Not a flicker of anger, not a flash of hurt, just a slow, measured nod. "Of course," he said quietly. "Enjoy your evening, Ms. Ashford." As Marcus walked away with dignity intact, Victoria turned back to her champagne, completely unaware that she had just lit the fuse on her own destruction. What happens next will shock you. The text messages started at 11:47 p.m. Victoria was barely through her apartment door, heels in hand, when her phone began vibrating with an intensity that felt almost angry. The first was from Gerald Chun, her board's vice chairman. "We need to talk. First thing Monday. This is serious." She deleted it. Gerald always overreacted. The second was from her longtime mentor, Catherine Weiss. "Victoria, what were you thinking? Call me immediately." She ignored it. Catherine was retired. She didn't understand how business worked anymore. But the third message made her pause. It was from her head of client relations, David Portman. "Emergency. Marcus Thompson is Teknova's CEO. The CEO. The client we've been working with for 6 years. Check the news. Check now." Victoria's blood went cold. Her fingers trembled as she opened her laptop. There it was, Technova's press release from 3 weeks ago, one she'd apparently never bothered to read. Technova Industries appoints Marcus Thompson as Chief Executive Officer, succeeding retiring CEO Robert Clarkson. Thompson brings 20 years of transformative leadership and unprecedented vision to the role. 20 years of leadership. Harvard MBA. Former VP at 3 Fortune 500 companies. Board member of the National Business Coalition. The man was decorated with accolades that made Victoria's own resume look sparse. And she had refused to shake his hand in front of 50 of the most influential people in American business. It's fine, Victoria told herself, pouring a glass of wine with shaking hands. It's just a handshake. He'll get over it. Business is business. But by Sunday afternoon, she knew it wasn't fine. The calls started coming in hushed, concerned voices from colleagues who'd been at the gala. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. What was she going to do? Had she reached out to apologize? Did she understand that Marcus Thompson wasn't just any CEO? He was connected to 3 members of Congress, sat on the board of 2 major philanthropic foundations, and was being courted by every investment firm on the East Coast? Let me ask you something, Victoria's communications director, Sarah, said during an emergency Sunday call. Do you actually have a hygiene concern about handshakes? Or? The silence on the line was deafening. Victoria, I need you to be honest with me. If this was about... It wasn't about anything, Victoria snapped. I simply chose not to shake his hand. People are making this into something it's not. 3 board members have called me, Sarah continued, her voice strained. They're saying other people at the gala are talking. Saying the way you looked at him, the way you spoke to him. Victoria, our Technova contract renewal is in 48 hours. If Marcus decides. Marcus won't decide anything, Victoria interrupted. The board loves us. We've delivered exceptional returns. One awkward social interaction won't change 6 years of perfect performance. But even as she said it, Victoria felt the ground shifting beneath her feet. By Monday morning at 6 a.m., she learned that Marcus had spent his entire weekend in meetings, confidential meetings, with Technova's board, with rival investment firms, with legal counsel reviewing contract termination clauses. Victoria's assistant burst into her office at 7:30 a.m., face pale. Marcus Thompson's office just requested all documentation related to our Technova account. Every report, every communication, every recommendation we've made for 6 years. That's routine audit procedure, Victoria said, but her voice wavered. They also want a full list of our diversity initiatives and inclusion metrics. Now Victoria's hands went cold. Why would they need that? The answer came in the form of a carefully worded email from Technova's legal department, carbon copied to 17 people. Technova Industries takes pride in partnering with organizations that reflect our corporate values of respect, dignity, and equality. We are conducting a comprehensive review of all vendor relationships to ensure alignment with these principles. Victoria read the email 3 times, each reading making her stomach sink lower. Her phone rang. It was James Hartford, the gala organizer. Victoria, I'm calling as a friend, he said quietly. 6 people have contacted me since Saturday night. 6 CEO-level executives who witnessed what happened. They're asking if what they saw was real. They're asking if they should reconsider doing business with your firm. Marcus hasn't said a word publicly, not one word, but his silence is somehow louder than any accusation could be. Victoria looked out her office window at the Manhattan skyline, at the empire she'd built through ruthlessness and ambition. What should I do? She whispered. Pray that Marcus Thompson is more forgiving than you were, James said. Because right now you're at his mercy, and you both know it. The call ended. Victoria stared at her phone, watching the minutes tick toward 9 a.m., when Technova's board would convene for their final decision. She had no idea the nightmare was just beginning. The email arrived at 9:03 a.m. Victoria Ashford was mid-sentence, explaining to her board why everything would be fine, when her assistant's face appeared on the video screen, drained of all color. Stop talking, her assistant whispered. Check your email. Now. 16 board members watched as Victoria opened her laptop. The subject line made her heart stop. Contract termination notice. Effective immediately. This can't be real, Victoria breathed. But it was. Devastatingly, legally, irreversibly real. Dear Ms. Ashford and Ashford Capital Management Board, after careful consideration and unanimous board approval, Technova Industries is exercising our contractual right to terminate our investment management agreement, effective at close of business today. This decision is final and non-negotiable. All assets under management will be transferred to our newly appointed investment partners within 72 hours. We wish you well in your future endeavors. Regards, Marcus Thompson, Chief Executive Officer, Technova Industries. The room erupted in chaos. $2.4 billion. Gerald Chin shouted. That's $2.4 billion in annual revenue, gone. How is this legal? Someone demanded. Victoria's hands shook as she scrolled through the attached documentation. Marcus's legal team had been thorough, devastatingly thorough. Every contract clause, every termination provision, every legal justification was laid out with surgical precision. Technova had every right to terminate, and they'd exercised it with ruthless efficiency. But it got worse. So much worse. At 9:47 a.m., Meridian Pharmaceuticals, a $800 million client, sent their termination notice. After reviewing recent events and consulting with industry colleagues, we believe our values are no longer aligned with your firm's leadership approach. At 10:15 a.m., Quantum Financial Systems followed, $650 million. Gone. At 11:02 a.m., Sterling Healthcare Group, $420 million. Vanished. By noon, Victoria had lost $4.27 billion in assets under management. Her phone exploded with notifications. News outlets had picked up the story. Not because Marcus had said anything, he hadn't given a single interview, but because other CEOs who'd witnessed the handshake incident were talking. Quietly, carefully, but unmistakably. I was there, one CEO told Bloomberg anonymously. What I saw was shocking. The contempt in her voice, the way she looked at him, it wasn't about hygiene. Everyone in that room knew exactly what it was about. Victoria's carefully constructed empire was collapsing in real time, broadcast across every financial news channel. At 2 p.m., her board demanded an emergency session. The vote was swift and unanimous. Victoria Ashford was to resign immediately or face public termination. You don't understand, Victoria shouted, her composure finally shattering. I built this firm from nothing. One mistake, one moment, and you're throwing me away. One moment. Catherine Weiss, joining via video, spoke with cold fury. Victoria, I mentored you for 15 years. I taught you that character is everything in this business. This wasn't a mistake. This was a revelation of who you really are. And now the whole world sees it. I'll apologize. Victoria's voice cracked. I'll make a public statement. Marcus Thompson gave you 72 hours to apologize, Gerald interrupted, sliding a document across the table. His assistant contacted U.S. Saturday Night. They said if you reached out within 72 hours with a sincere apology, they would consider it in their deliberations. The words hit Victoria like a physical blow. What? You had until Tuesday morning, Gerald continued, his voice hard. It's Monday afternoon. You never called. You never emailed. You didn't even try. Instead, you told multiple people that everyone was overreacting, that Marcus would get over it. That business is business. Victoria felt the room spinning. You thought your arrogance was more valuable than your integrity, Catherine said. You thought being powerful meant you didn't have to be decent. You were wrong. At 4:37 p.m., Marcus Thompson gave his first and only interview about the incident. The Wall Street Journal's reporter asked him directly, "Why did you terminate your contract with Ashford Capital?" Marcus's response was measured, dignified, and absolutely devastating. I've spent my entire career proving that excellence has no color. I've earned every position I've held through merit, innovation, and integrity. When someone refuses to extend basic human courtesy, something as simple and universal as a handshake, they reveal who they are. Technova Industries partners with people who understand that respect isn't a privilege to be selectively granted. It's a fundamental requirement for meaningful collaboration. Ms. Ashford made her choice. I simply made mine. He never raised his voice. He never attacked her personally. He never even said the word racism. He didn't have to. The interviewer asked, "Do you have any message for Ms. Ashford?" Marcus was silent for a long moment. Then, with quiet finality, "I hope she learns that bridges are easier to build than rebuild. And some bridges, once burned, are gone forever." By 5 p.m., Victoria Ashford's resignation was announced. By 5:30 p.m., 3 more clients had terminated their contracts. By the next morning, everything she'd built had turned to ash. 3 weeks later, Victoria Ashford sat in a corner booth at an empty restaurant, staring at her phone as another potential employer sent their rejection. "We've decided to pursue other candidates whose leadership philosophy more closely aligns with our corporate values." It was the 17th rejection in 19 days. The message was always the same: polite, professional, and absolutely clear. She was untouchable. The business media had moved on from daily coverage, but the damage was permanent. Victoria's Wikipedia page now led with controversy before listing any of her accomplishments. Google her name and the first 3 pages were about the handshake. Not her Harvard degree, not the companies she'd helped grow, just the handshake she refused. Her former firm had announced a complete restructuring under new leadership. They'd hired Marcus's former colleague, a woman of color with impeccable credentials, as their new CEO. The symbolism wasn't subtle, and it was working. 2 of the clients who'd fled were already considering returning. But the most painful moment came when Victoria learned about Marcus Thompson's response to his sudden fame. He'd taken no victory laps, given no additional interviews. Instead, he'd done something that made Victoria's humiliation feel even more acute. He'd used the moment to launch an initiative, the Dignity in Business Fellowship, the press release announced. Technova Industries, in partnership with 5 other Fortune 500 companies, will provide mentorship, funding, and support to minority business leaders who have faced discrimination in professional settings. "We believe that respect is not a luxury. It's a requirement for progress." Marcus had transformed her prejudice into purpose, her hatred into hope. Her attempt to diminish him had instead elevated him into a symbol of grace under pressure. And everyone noticed. He could have destroyed her publicly, one commentator noted on CNBC. Instead, he simply stepped back and let her actions speak for themselves. That's real power. Victoria watched these segments from her apartment, which she'd soon have to sell. The condo in Manhattan, the summer house in the Hamptons, the luxury car, all of it was going. Her divorce papers had been filed 3 days after her resignation. Even her husband couldn't stomach being associated with her anymore. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Victoria Ashford? The voice was young, female, professional. "Yes. I'm calling from the National Business Ethics Council. We're conducting a case study on leadership failures and corporate accountability. We'd like to interview you about the incident with Marcus Thompson." Victoria closed her eyes. "To humiliate me further?" "No," the woman said, surprisingly gentle. "To understand what you've learned. See, we've interviewed dozens of executives who witnessed what happened. We've talked to diversity consultants, legal experts, and corporate psychologists. But we haven't heard from you, the actual person at the center of this." "What would I even say?" Victoria's voice cracked. "The truth, whatever that is for you." Victoria was quiet for a long moment. "The truth is that I was raised in a world where people like me didn't have to think about these things, where our comfort mattered more than other people's dignity. The truth is that I looked at Marcus Thompson and saw his race before I saw his accomplishments. And the truth is that I destroyed my entire life because I couldn't extend my hand for 3 seconds." She could hear typing on the other end. "Do you regret it?" the woman asked. "Every second of every day," Victoria whispered. "But regret doesn't pay back $4 billion. Regret doesn't restore 20 years of professional relationships. Regret doesn't change the fact that when I finally tried to apologize, 2 days too late. Marcus's assistant politely declined to connect us. What would you say to him now if you could? Victoria looked at her reflection in the restaurant window. The designer clothes now looked like a costume. The confidence now looked like delusion. I'd say that he showed me what leadership actually looks like. That dignity isn't about what you say when people are watching. It's about what you do when someone treats you as less than human and you still choose to respond with grace. I'd say that he won. Not because he destroyed me, but because he didn't have to. I destroyed myself the moment I let my prejudice override my humanity. The call ended. Victoria sat in the silence of the empty restaurant, watching the sun set over a city that had once belonged to her. Marcus Thompson's Technova stock had reached an all-time high that morning. His fellowship had received applications from 3,000 aspiring business leaders in just 2 weeks. And Victoria Ashford had become exactly what she deserved. A cautionary tale. 6 months had passed, and Victoria Ashford had learned to navigate a world that no longer recognized her name as currency. She was working now, not as a CEO, not as an executive, but as a consultant for a small firm in New Jersey that specialized in corporate restructuring. They'd hired her at a fraction of her former salary, and only after she'd agreed to complete a comprehensive diversity and inclusion training program. Her colleagues were polite but distant. Everyone knew who she was. Everyone knew what she'd done. The Metropolitan Hotel was hosting another gala, the Spring Business Summit. Victoria had no invitation this time, but she'd come anyway, standing in the lobby bar, watching the attendees filter past in their evening wear. She told herself she was here for closure, but really, she was hoping for redemption. At 8:47 p.m., Marcus Thompson walked through the main entrance. Victoria's breath caught. He looked exactly as he had that night. Confident, composed, carrying himself with the quiet dignity of someone who had nothing to prove. But there was something else now. He was surrounded by people. Young executives, business students, professionals of all backgrounds, all seeking his wisdom, his time, his mentorship. He'd become exactly what the business world needed. A leader defined not by his response to success, but by his response to disrespect. Victoria's hands trembled as she set down her drink. This was her chance, maybe her only chance, to say what she should have said 7 months ago. She approached the group. Several people recognized her, their expressions shifting from surprise to discomfort. Marcus saw her before she could speak. For 3 seconds that felt like 3 hours, their eyes met. "Mr. Thompson," Victoria said, her voice barely audible over the lobby noise. "I know I have no right to your time, but I'm asking for 60 seconds. Just 60 seconds. Marcus studied her. His expression was unreadable. Not angry, not welcoming, just observant. 60 seconds, he agreed quietly, stepping slightly apart from his group. Victoria had rehearsed this moment hundreds of times. She'd written speeches, practiced in mirrors, consulted with therapists about what to say. But now, standing in front of the man whose dignity she tried to strip away, all the practiced words dissolved. "I can't undo what I did," she began. "I can't give you back the respect I denied you. I can't erase the fact that I looked at you, a man with achievements that surpassed my own, and saw only your race. I destroyed my career. I lost everything, and I deserved every bit of it." Marcus listened without interrupting. "But what haunts me," Victoria continued, her voice breaking, "is that you responded to my hatred with such grace that you made me look even worse. You didn't have to say a word. You just let me destroy myself. And somehow, that was more powerful than any revenge you could have taken. Is that what you think happened?" Marcus asked gently. "That I let you destroy yourself?" Victoria looked confused. "Didn't you?" Marcus shook his head slowly. "Victoria, I made a business decision based on values. I didn't do it to destroy you. I did it because Technova deserves partners who see people as people. You destroyed yourself the moment you let prejudice override your professionalism. I just refused to be complicit in it." The words hit Victoria with unexpected force. He was right. This had never been about revenge. It had been about standards. "What do I do now?" Victoria whispered. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then, You do the work. Real work, not public relations, not damage control. You examine why you thought it was acceptable to treat another human being that way. You listen to people whose experiences you've dismissed. You use your story to prevent others from making the same mistake. And you accept that some bridges can't be rebuilt. They can only serve as reminders of what we should never do again. He extended his hand. Victoria stared at it, tears streaming down her face. This time, she took it without hesitation. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank me," Marcus said. "Just be better." He returned to his group, and Victoria stood alone in the lobby, watching him disappear into the ballroom where she once belonged. Here's the moral that will change how you see every interaction. ***. Respect is not a gift you bestow on those you deem worthy. It's a baseline you extend to every human being. Power without character is just tyranny waiting to collapse. And sometimes the most powerful response to disrespect is simply refusing to lower yourself to that level. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever witnessed prejudice in professional settings? How did you respond? Drop your story in the comments below. Your experience might help someone facing the same situation. And if this story impacted you, hit that subscribe button and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because the business world changes one choice at a time, and your choice to demand dignity for yourself and others matters more than you know. Remember, the handshake you refuse today might be the empire you lose tomorrow.